Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new to the channel, the concept is to get more out of life, right? That's the meaning behind get motivated. So in today's video, I want to talk about, and this is the start of, you know, more content of my correctional officer days. If you saw my last video, I mentioned that only because, right, when I did correctional officer week, man, the views went up like crazy. So I kind of feel like I owe it to y'all to tell y'all more of my story of the time I was a correctional officer for the state at a maximum prison. So I guess today, just starting off, I guess like my morning, my routine, like leaving the house, right? I drove like an hour and 15 one way. And I would say an hour and a half, but that was just one way. I had to be in the debrief and turnout by 5:30 in the morning, even though our shift didn't start till 6 a.m. So you had to give yourself enough time, right, to get in that parking lot, park, and then walk, and wait in line to because you think about it, right? You have both now. You have GP and SEG, and then they're all trying to come in, so the line's gonna be a while, right? Everybody trying to get in, everybody needs to get pat down one at a time, so to speak. So yeah, it can take some time. So I would wake up at 2:30 in the morning, and I really wouldn't eat breakfast at home because I knew I couldn't get something there at the prison. So if I had the time. And so yeah, 2:30, I would make sure I would leave the house by 3:30. 3:45 was pushing it, but 3:30 was like I'm out the door in the car heading out. And if I had time, which was like almost like every morning, I would stop at the Valero on 181 as soon as you got into Floresville, and I would give me my energy drink, my Rain, my Monster, Red Bull, and I drink that along the way. And even though at that time my faith wasn't as strong as it is now, I I would, as soon as I would get into the prison, like in the parking lot, I would say a little prayer, but then I would go back and I would read Isaiah 41:10 and Philippians 4:13, and I would just press that in here, and then Psalm 23. Those are my three verses that I would read every time before I walked into that prison. And once I once I and of course, right, at that point I would text the wife just to let her know, like, hey, I made it, I'm here. And that's something else too that I don't think I've ever mentioned in the videos, but like, clearly you can't take your cell phone with you. So at that point I would text her like, hey, I'm here, turn off the phone now, I love you, have a great day, and I will message you or I'll call you when I get out. And yeah, that's what it was, right? I would turn off the phone, put it in my console, and then take off. And at that point, right, like every time, never felt the nerves would kick in, the not so much the anxiety, but just like shit, like it's about to get real now. Like it is. And it's just like, you know what? Again, right, say my prayers so those feelings can just, go away. And I remember, I think I've said it before in the videos, that if you feel comfortable walking inside that prison, like if you feel like 100% comfortable, something's wrong with you. Like that's the way I've always heard it. Like you gotta have that anxiety, you gotta have the nerves, you gotta have, that sense of fear. Because the way I saw it is like, I mean, we're going into the devil's playground. Like that's the way I always saw it. And I mean, like I said, you're walking amongst, in all walks of life, And yeah, I'll admit there were some offenders that, yes, they were wrongfully accused, but at the end, it's like we have to treat all the offenders the same, regardless. regardless of what they did, regardless what they're in there for. But yeah, so once I walked in through security, made my way in, and then we all met at the debrief turnout, and I had a little notepad with me, and the whole reason for turnout was so the lieutenant and the sergeants can go over what happened, the night before on the building. If there was any, assaults, if there was any incidents, if there was anything we need to be concerned about. And sometimes, right, like overnight, shit popped off that the warden made that call, like, hey, you know what, everybody's on lockdown until further notice. Like, shit, once that happened, it's like, hell yeah, that made our day a lot easier, because at that point, like, everybody's in the house. So all you're doing is your security rounds and your cell searches. And that's it. And then and of course, right, the showers. But I mean, that was it. Like, there was no mass movement. So yeah, the supervisors, the sergeants will go over, like, any kind of training, like whether it was a fire drill, how to properly do a strip search, how to do a pat search, escorting procedures, transport, what else? Hand restraints, right? How to properly put on the hand restraints, the leg restraints. And then of course the lieutenant will go over they'll tell you the assignment, right? Like where you're gonna be assigned at. And you always wanted to hear out like who you're gonna be paired up with, because at that point, like, okay, like, you know what? Once you were paired up with that other officer, like, you knew, like, shit, our pod is gonna be on point because we're both on the same page. And then every once in a while, you get paired up with somebody who's just like, like, damn, I gotta do all the work now, right? Because it's like, for whatever reason, like, they didn't have that and I'll say it on here because I'm pretty sure y'all, y'all know what I'm talking about. But at that time, we had a lot of Nigerians that came over and they were working for the state, and so it was crazy, right? Like, it was interesting, but at the same time, it was crazy because there were some that they were, timid. They were scared to, like, get in, not necessarily get in their face, but like to enforce the rules, right? So, like, yeah, it was interesting because, and then some of them would give out extra food, and it's just like, hold on, like, you can't be you can't be doing stuff like that, like, no. So it's kind of like it creates that conflict, and so it was very interesting, right? But for the most part, like I said, once I walked into the turnout room, said what's up to everybody. And for me, I always kept to myself because, shit, I mean, I'm still half asleep, to be honest with you. But yeah, every once in a while I say what's up. And then if I worked B side, then I had to go get my inserts for my vest, the stab resistant inserts. And that was I mean, that was something that on B side you had to wear a vest. Like, that was, and if you had inserts, great. And if you didn't, well, I mean, shit, you just had your vest on and with no inserts, and you just made sure that nothing would happen, right? A side, not so much, but as a B side officer, when you do A side, like, it's just, like, you're like, that's part of your uniform, right? Like, so it's like when you go over to A side and you're wearing a vest, the offenders look at you like, hey, you're on the wrong side. But it's just, we get used to it. And so once, if I was on the floor, I mean, my first thing was I did my security check. I did my round, make sure everybody was, living, breathing bodies. And then from there, I would check the day room, check the showers, look for any contraband, check the day room windows, check the when you go outside the day room and you're in the D space, we have a little, like, outside rec yard, and I would check in there too for any contraband. And then I would knock out my cell searches, right? Like, this was already, like, I got my routine down, so I would knock out those cell searches, get them out the way. And for me, I didn't spend too much time in the cell searches. And I'll admit, like, sometimes I wouldn't even I mean, there were some officers that they would start like right at 6:30 in the morning with the cell surges. And to me, I'm like, shit, they're asleep. Like, like that was just me. Like, I'd rather have them more like, yeah, once they're, they're awake, they're not disturbed, you know. And that's just me. And I already know I'm gonna get that pushback because it's like, hey man, they're a convicted felon, right? Like, who cares? Like, wake them up. But that was just me. Like, I just felt like, you know what? I don't want to have no kind of problems. Like, so it's like I want to have a chill day, even though like 9 times out of 10, having a chill day, like that's rarely gonna happen. There's always gonna be some kind of shit popping off, and something as simple as not simple, but night shift promised like, hey, I'll call out plumber, or hey, I'll send you to medical, and that never happened. So there we are, right? We're doing our first round, or we're doing our first feeding, and then boom, a jack trace lot. I was like, what the heck? And at that point, you gotta stop because it's like you want to get that slot back. And if you continue feeding, his homeboy down the row or in the other section, they have their jack slot now. So now it's like, shit, now you have two. Now you have 3 slots. And if you have that many slots, like, okay, what happened? All right, so I feel like I'm just rambling on right now, right? But you gotta listen to what the offender has to say, and you know what, that was on night shift, but I'll see what I can do. Give me some time. And like I've always said it, right? Like, that's one thing that we all have in that prison is your word. Once you don't stick to your word, once you don't follow through, man, these offenders are not gonna take you serious. But I do my shift, and then as soon as that was something that I noticed on A side. For the most part, A side, once they got relieved, they started walking out, right? B side, we left as a whole. We left as a unit. That's the shit that I love, because it was like, and sometimes, right, you had a few stragglers on second shift that they had to stop by the ODR, get them something to eat first. So I was like, well, shit, dude, like, hey, like, I'm trying to get to the house. And finally, right, they make their way in. We get switched out, and then from there, everybody would wait by the desk, or if not, outside the building. But for the most part, by the desk. And then once everybody got relieved on B side, from the building, then we all walked out together, right? And it's funny, right? Because sometimes like you're hoping that you don't hear no ICS on your way out, because at that point it's like, if it's a staff assault, like shit, everybody like go. Like that's just what it is, because it's like, we have each other's back, right? So just because we got relieved of duty, and we're still in the property, right? So it's like, if shit pops off, like shit, we gotta go. And there was a few instances where that did happen, where we're like already walking out, and then we hear it on the radio, like, oh shit, and boom, we take off. And by the time we get there, yeah, everything's contained. So at that point, once he tells, hey, y'all good, go ahead, cool. But yeah, so once I got in the car, turned on my phone, called the wife up, and basically just, not so much tell her about my day, just because, she wouldn't understand. But like, hey, it was a good day, nothing happened. Or now, you know what, hey, this did happen. And sometimes she would like, you know, she would just listen to me, but she just couldn't relate, right? Like, she just couldn't, like, dang, why'd you do that? Is that just like, um, and then I would like, okay, babe, boy, I'll see you in a little bit. And I mean, shit, I had to listen to my music, just like anybody else. And I mean, I couldn't really text and drive, but like, no lie, like, if I can go back in time, like, I would have spent more time talking to her on the phone, like I would have. But for me, it was just like, I just wanted to like unwind. I didn't drink, so I mean, I mean, I drank on my days off, but I didn't drink when I worked. So for me to unwind was just like listening to my music and just heading out back home. And once I got home, gave her a hug, kiss, said hi to the kiddos, and I took a quick shower, had some dinner, and we usually try to watch like some kind of movie, some kind of show. And then by like 9 o'clock, I was in bed, 9:30, and then do it all over again the next day, right? And as I mentioned, I would do overtime. I would do either like 2 days of overtime and not one day. I mean, depending. But that was always constant because if I didn't sign up for overtime, they would give me mandatory overtime. And at that point, it would be again, right? It would be the days that I wanted off, but they would cancel me and I would have to work those days. And that's why I kept signing up for overtime, because if I had Friday, Saturday, Sunday off, like I did my best to have Friday, Saturday off at least, and then go in Sunday and Monday, or just go in that Monday, because I mean, shit, I want to be able to enjoy the time with my family. And it was always ironic that the times that I had to work weekends, there was always something going on, always with my family, whether her side or my side. And then the times that I was off on the weekends, nothing was going on. It was just crazy. But and then I'll admit, like, I was paranoid. Like, I was like to go out with my family, with the kids, because it's like, shit, I'm working at the prison, right? Like, I'm pretty sure they have access to what I look like out here in the free world, as we say it. So it was like I was paranoid to be out with my family because of that, right? Like, I don't want to put my family in danger. So I would, like, you know what, I just want to stay home. You know, um, it was, I mean, it was rare that we went out, but when we did go out, it was just like I was always looking over my shoulder, because of that same reason. Um, Trying to think what else. I think that'll be it. Like I said, I kind of went a little off topic, but that's pretty much like my routine of, waking up at 2:30, heading out, and by 3:30, you know, coming back home, going to sleep by like 9:30, and then just doing it all over again. And yes, I could have stayed in Beeville during the times that I worked. I could have rented out a BOQ room, or I could have got an RV, parked it, and stayed out there, in that sense. But um, for me, like, if I can go back home and spend time with my family, like, that's what I would do. The only time that I did stay up there was during in service, because that was just too much back and forth. With having to be, because in service was in Bevo, so it was more of it was like a 2-hour drive. I think that's what it was. So it was like, at that point, yeah, I would stay in Bevo for that, because from Bevo to the unit was like a 30-minute drive. But for me, it was just like, I'd rather be home with my kids. Now, we had a lot of officers that they came from the valley. So yeah, for them, they had no choice but to stay in the BOQ. And salute to y'all, because y'all are really making that sacrifice of being away from your family, those 4 or 6 days out of the week. So salute to y'all, because I couldn't do it, right? Like, it's just, if I can go home, I'm gonna go home. But I think that'll be it for this one. I mean, I didn't really say too much. Um, I just, other than, like I said, those Bible verses that I would read in the parking lot, and you know, that was like my routine, every day, every morning. And then we had like a 30-minute break when we would get relieved. But for me, like, I couldn't walk out, because I just felt like that was just too much time. By the time I go out there, like, before I know it, it's like, shit, I only have like 15 minutes, and then I had to go back. So I just stayed inside the prison, and I would go to the ODR and just, and I mean, but yeah, every once in a while I would run out and, just call the wife up and just, hey, thinking about you. I'm okay, but I'm gonna go back inside. But I think that'll be it for this video. I feel like, I kind of left like some cliffhangers, or I kind of went like one topic to the other. But y'all stay tuned. I'm gonna be doing some more videos in the next, from here on out. But yeah, I hope y'all are well. I hope y'all are blessed. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see y'all on the next one.